Hi guys, it's Sam from Raggedy Bits with helpful DIY tutorials to inspire you and fun workshops. Today we're going to work on this little number here. It's a cute little child kitty's high chair, and it's a bit of a special piece. My hubby and I purchased this a few years ago. We actually bought it to put it into our baby's room, but unfortunately we miscarried quite late in the piece of the pregnancy. So it's just kind of been sitting there, just not really sort of doing anything. So I thought it'd be really special to just make the little high chair over, and yeah, hopefully one day it might happen for us. Anyway. So I'm going to be using Fusion Divine Lavender, and we're going to be blending that a little bit with some plaster, some Fusion plaster. So what I'm going to do is first of all go paint the whole entire chair with 2 coats of the Divine Lavender. I'm just going to be using my F30, which is my favorite flat brush. It's got a nice narrow bridge, so you can sort of get into all the little fiddly bits. So all I've done so far is I've just completely wiped down the whole chair with Fusion TSP to get rid of any dust or gunge that might have settled on the piece while it's been sitting in the room. And I've also, obviously when I've cleaned, I've been polishing it or dusting it with furniture polish. So I have done the scratch, and there's no build-up of wax or anything like that, but if there was, I would wipe this whole thing down with white spirits just to get rid of that wax build-up. But luckily there's none on the piece, so we can just go ahead and paint. Just finish, whoops. Already I can see that this has got really lovely coverage, which is awesome. So I've let this dry overnight. There's 2 coats of dried lavender, and it's really important that you make sure that you let this undercoat dry properly. So when you're blending, because you obviously don't want to disrupt the base colour when you're adding water to keep the paint open. So what I'm going to do is I've got a couple of tools. I've got my spritzer. I've just popped out some plaster and some lavender onto a plastic sheet, and I've just got a couple of brushes here because I don't want to mix up the paint too much. I'll just use one for the lavender and then another one for the plaster, and I'll be using my Oval 35 for blending. And it's really important that you make sure that your bristles are nice and dry. It just stops it sort of giving a bit of a streaky, mottled sort of effect when you're blending. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to always start at the top, because you don't want to, as you're spraying, go onto your work. So I'm going to start on the back, and then I'm going to work my way down the front of the chair. So I'm just going to give it dried lavender a bit of a spray. And then I'm just going to come along with the plaster. I'm just going to put a little bit in the center here. You sort of want to do it equidistant from the sides so that you don't leave a massive gap. Okay, and then with the brush that I'm going to use for both the white and the lavender, I'm just going to pop that onto my brush, and then I'm going to just go around the outside of where the white is, sorry, of where the plaster is. So I'm going to sort of create a bit of a square. And notice how I'm turning the inside of my brush to make sure that it goes on the inside of the white, because you don't want the white traveling out too far out to the edges. Okay, so then just taking my oval brush, just make sure it's got all the moisture out of it. As I said, you're just going to work up and down, pulling the paint from the outer square into the center, and then you're going to go backwards and forwards. And just keep playing it around with it and moving the paint until you're happy with your blending. I'm going to sort of curve it a little bit at the top there. I'm just using my paper towel just to clean off my brush. And it's just going to be a really subtle blend. And you just keep playing around with it till you're happy. Just make sure that you sort of even it up. And it probably looks like there's a bit of a discrepancy, but that's only because this is wet paint and the outer edge is dry. That'll all sort of dry nicely as it dries. And if you find that you're not happy with it, it's okay. You can just go back, let it dry. Don't try and do it while the paint's still wet. Just let the paint dry and then come back and then blend again. Sometimes you have to do 2 lots of blending just to get that sort of nice little smoky effect. Okay, so now moving on, I'm going to just let that bit dry. Just going to now start on the seat. I'm going to do the same thing. Give it a good spray. And then this time I'm just going to use, pop on my plaster. The next step is I'm just starting to add some transfers onto the high chair. I'm using the IOD Wanderer, and I'm just sort of cutting out little bits and pieces from projects that I've done. I'm not sure if you can see behind me, but there's 2 chalkboards that I've repurposed or upcycled. And these are all the bits and pieces that are left. So there's quite a lot here that you get in one sheet. So you get quite a few projects out of one sheet. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to lightly stamp the kind disregard, the IOD kind disregard, just lightly over the back of the chair and here. I may even do just a little tiny weeny bit across here. And looking at the piece now, I have kind of changed my mind in the direction that I'm going to go, because I did end up blending the sides, and I think that having any sort of design or anything on the side here is going to make it, it's going to detract from what's going on here. So I'm actually going to go back over this with dried lavender when I've finished, and also on the back, because I blended the back as well. And I'm not going to put anything on there because I think it's going to sort of give the high chair, it's going to be overkill. Okay, so I've just popped out some stone grey onto a old plate, and I'm just loading up my brayer, and I'm just going to go, I'm leaving it on its actual sheet, so the sheet that it comes on. But if it is the first time that you're using your stamp, make sure that you get some 120 grit sandpaper and just go over the stamp, because that just basically opens it up a little bit so that the ink can soak in and you get a more crisper design on your piece. So just so I'm just going to do the same down here on the bottom. Okay. And I'll hold it up to the camera just so you can see it a bit better. So you can see it's just really, really faint. You could do it in white if you wanted to, but I didn't want that to sort of detract away from the blending that we've done. Okay. So now that that's all done, I'm just going to give it a really quick coat on the backs and the sides, like I said, with some dried lavender, and I'll give it a wax, and we're all done.